Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 4, Episode 3 of Killing Eve. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think this is the most people they've bounced between in a single episode, isn't it? It's usually I think the most before now was 5, wasn't it? It's never been a lot of people they've bounced between like this, but obviously a lot of these stories ended up being interconnected, so it's interesting because it wasn't even a situation of a lot of times we saw different perspectives. Because one of the previous times they've done this, it was like you're kind of getting different perspectives on people's story of how you get to that, how you see what they were doing beforehand and how their story eventually connects to another person's story. Wasn't really doing that. It was just jumping from, I guess, just in general different perspectives in a constantly intertwined story. But first and foremost, you have Villanelle breaking into Eve's place. Breaking in / sneaking in, and when Eve finds her in there, she's so, I don't care, do whatever you want to, changes in front of her, and there's almost this element of, oh, you're a married couple that doesn't love each other anymore, or at least things are complicated. It's right, we've both, one of you's cheated and you just don't know how to move forward, so you're kind of quiet towards each other. It had that energy about it. I guess maybe, it's we got separated, but it's I want us back. It's almost that type of energy. And Eve just leaves and is cool, when I'm back, I'd like you to be gone. She goes to Yusuf. He's yeah, I think Villanelle killed somebody. It's okay, cool. And just immediately, it's well, what do you want to do about it? She's nothing. I'm because regardless of what Eve wants to say, despite her being oh, I want nothing to do with it, it's not my job anymore. But it's still not doing anything wasn't a solution either. I guess that's why she finally was enough is enough at the end of the episode. But still, just doing nothing isn't really much of a solution. But I think it's also because Eve's kind of moved on. She's found a new. That's why I'm almost that's all Helen is for you. It's a means to an end, but also she's filling that void in your heart from the whole Villanelle thing. She still does have that sway, that control over you, and you do miss it, and you like someone, the way Helen, put your hand on that stove last episode and burned you and hurt you. You liked it, you got off to it. It's very similar to your dynamic with Villanelle, but it's new, it's fresh, doesn't have the extreme amount of baggage you and Villanelle have, so it's nice, It's because Villanelle ties into your life before, everything that you've ever lost, everything she's ever done to you, the back and forth, the cat and mouse, but now this is a new fresh cat and mouse. It's also not tied to your ex-husband, Nico, so that uncomplicates things a little bit more, so it's fascinating. But they end up following Helen's car and end up finding out someone that she just kind of hit it and quit it, Fernanda, which I feel so bad for her. And I love that it's because Eve's playing being oh, I got dumped and I have no friends in this country. You want me to buy you a bottle of wine or something? She's no, because you do have a friend. I'm Fernanda is actually really sweet. She's bearing her heart and soul. She was just married, got left by her husband, and then Helen just swept into her life and is okay, so Helen was just using you to get to your husband, whoever he is. Well, we find out later on his name is was it Lars Mayer, not Meyer. So that was interesting. So it's is her husband one of the 12? And Helen was using Fernanda to get close to him, because Fernanda says she doesn't know what her husband does, and she just knows that he's extremely rich. I think she said she asked him about it and he got super quiet and he just left, and she hasn't seen or talked to him since. So, but she's opening and bearing her soul, and obviously asking about Eve's, because Helen was the first woman Fernanda had ever been with. And which very similar to the dynamic I think Eve had with Villanelle. I don't remember if they've ever expressed whether Villanelle's the first woman Eve's ever had. Well, probably first most complicated relationship of her entire life. I'm sure by far there's no close second. I'm sure. But I don't know if I don't remember them ever expressing whether or not that was her first encounter with a woman. If they had, they never really made a big deal out of it, so it might have been the exact same thing for Eve. So it's Fernanda is a more very similar to Eve. I guess I guess you can almost compare her to Eve a few years ago, back when things between her and Villanelle were still new and fresh. I guess is one way to kind of look at it. But she talked, it's like, because Fernanda had asked like about her ex, and it's like, oh, she was controlling, delusional, and all of this. And it's like, she says it with such spite, but there is such longing in Eve's eyes that despite all that, there is a part of her that kind of like that. Once again, it was nice for a while until it wasn't, I guess. What's the phrasing I'm actually looking for? What show was that? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It was, Dare Me. There's those lines I thought, that line I always thought was kind of neat. It was beautiful until it wasn't. I don't know. That's a show I'm just so bummed they never did a season 2 of. That got canceled after season 1. Regardless, tangents and all that aside. And I felt so bad when, like, Fernanda went to the bathroom, and by the time she came back out, Eve is going, it's like, right, she's a little drunk in the day, she's heartbroken, she thought she made a friend, and you were just using her. It's also the thing, too, like, it's not like Eve's the greatest person either. She just uses people and tosses them, like, she has in the past, like, so it's not like she's the greatest person either. I mean, granted, she still has, like, a leg up on Villanelle, because she's, like, not the worst person in existence, but still. Other elements in the episode, we follow Pam a little bit more. Obviously, the very complicated relationship. I don't think maybe they said it last episode and I didn't remember. I didn't remember Pam and Elliot being brother and sister. It's like, wow, that is a very contentious relationship that they have. Seems like it's just a whole family dynamic, because the dad is like, because Elliot was like, right, Mom didn't want you. She wanted to have an abortion when it came to you. I was like, you don't have to be such a dick. Because he's pissed at her, because he's like, right, you're a creep, you're a weirdo, you're a freak. The fact is that your mom never wanted you, and she tried to fight back by being like, yeah, but Dad would be so disappointed in you by what you've done to the business. So what does he do? He locks her inside the morgue and just leaves. I was like, are you actually not going to come back? But I think it was going to be like, oh, I'm going to let you stay here overnight. He treats her terribly. And when she's with Helen, she ends up saying like, okay, I'm ready to get to work, because she's ready to leave this life behind her, because it's like, this life is just making her sad and it's just beating her down. But Helen's like, oh, you're not ready yet. Finally, Pam just finally snaps. To be fair, it's on Helen's fault for not doing her own due diligence and not listening. I guess it's because when it comes to training people, as we see later on, she just pushes it off on Constantine, because I guess she thought she doesn't really have much practice. Well, we know Rianne was hers, but I don't know like if she's the one that trained Rianne personally. Maybe she was. Because she wasn't the one that dealt with Villanelle. Well, she dealt with Villanelle eventually personally in season 3, but that was all Constantine that kind of fortified that and stuff. And Dasha that forged her into the diamond that she was, essentially. So I don't know if Helen's had a lot of practice molding people, but yeah, Pam was kind of a whole situation within herself. But it's like, as a handler, I think you should have done your own due diligence to be like, maybe I should be reading the signs when the person I'm training to be my new top lieutenant assassin comes to me about concerns and ready to get to work. It's like, I think you're not ready yet, but maybe you should have just kept a better eye on her. Micromanaging over this wasn't your best. I don't know. I just think that kind of falls on her plate as much as it does Pam. Her killing her Elliot the way she did, stabbing him multiple times like that, kind of reminded me of, sadly, it reminded me when Villanelle killed Bob. Like, it had very similar, like, the multiple, like, small stabs. I think that's what, and then, like, well, Pam also has the skills to embalm him afterwards, and just left the body there, so for any and everyone to discover. I mean, granted, it was almost kind of like a, hey, look at this. Well, because Helen did kind of chew Pam out, because it's like, right, Eve found her because of Pam. To be fair, it's also because yes, it is on Pam, because she knew immediately, like, oh, Pam is just the type of person Helen would look for, and then she found you picking her up, so it's also on you. Once again, you weren't the best, like, you probably should have made that, like, but I guess you're thinking, like, oh, no one's going to come looking, so it kind of falls back on Pam getting followed in the first place, because she didn't probably didn't mention to Helen that she beat someone up that was following her, because I don't think she realized it was Eve that was following her, because Eve was wearing like a covering her face and she had a hood on. So regardless, so there's you inadvertently led Eve to Helen, plus now you killed your own brother, and now it's like, right, I told you you're not ready. So like I said, Helen is off to get Constantine, who's living it up and enjoying his position. I'm like, I guess they just gave him the cushy position there, because it's like, cool, we need you in a powerful position, but we can always call you in. I even love Helen's like, I decided to get you because you're the easiest to blackmail. She's like, I'm kidding, you're just really, really good at your job. Obviously, it's more so the first one. First bit about you just being super easy to blackmail. She's also like, yeah, like it's you're really good at the whole bringing in the young disenfranchised. I could not say that word. Disenfranchised young women, just kind of poking at him about the whole, like, right, you did it with Villanelle. It's like, yeah, but look how that whole situation turned out. But so it's gonna be interesting. I guess we're gonna get some of that Villanelle and Constantine relationship. We're gonna see, like, because we never got early days of that dynamic. By the time we got introduced to that dynamic, it'd been going on for a while. So getting early days with like Constantine and Pam is going to be really interesting. I don't think Pam's going to survive this season. Either Villanelle's going to find out eventually and kill her or something. I don't know. Pam's not going to survive this season, sadly. So but I think it's going to be interesting to see the birth of an assassin, because I don't think we've really seen that, because most assassins we've seen have there was a guy that Villanelle was training back in season 3. Was it Felix? That she ended up killing. So that's the closest we got, but we never got to see him really spread his wings. I think we'll get to see Pam spread her wings a little bit before they ultimately end up getting clipped, sadly. But we'll see how that plays out. At the same time, we have the whole Carolyn situation. Obviously, her working with Vlad. And she's like, right, there's still a smell here in this place. It's like, he's like, you could clean up a little bit. And she's like, why would I do that? Like, I don't, it's like, you could give me an offense. He's like, I can't do that. But she's taking the rat out. But she's like, there's still something here. And I'm like, and just like the distant stares that Carolyn has this episode, where it's just like, I think everything's just hitting her still. It's like, right, the Kenny thing, plus the person that she sold out to Vlad last episode, one of them ended up getting killed, ended up killing herself when she was a quote-unquote a little intimidated. So I think all that swirling a little bit, but it's like, right, the ends justify the means. Her and Eve aren't working together, but they're approaching this situation from two different things. Eve's got a lot of information, and so does Carolyn, because she ultimately ends up finding out from Vlad one of the people that Helen tried to have killed didn't stick. Brutal though, apparently cutting off all his toes, stuffing them in his nostrils. The sad thing is I can imagine that, and I was like, that's disturbing. I guess because they go in such detail of like, yeah, like, oh, not just cutting off your toes, but shoving them in someone's nose. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that in any TV show or form of torture. But they have someone that's still alive, but now they're in had to move to a safe house, and so Carolyn wants to go there to get information. So she's a little bit ahead of Eve in that regard, but Eve's once again tackling this whole Helen thing from her own approach. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see when eventually their stories fully collide again. There's probably not going to be too many interactions between them, because there's so many characters in this that are just so separate. Like Caroline and Eve only had that one interaction last episode. We'll see if they're going to have any more on-screen scenes together, because everyone's stories are all connected, just scattered across the board, and it's just like, what's going to be that linchpin thing that brings everyone together in the same scene type of thing, or at least within the same confines in the general same area of an episode. And then on the other side, we have Villanelle going to therapy, going to Martin, and kind of taking him hostage. And he's like, yeah, I can. You can set an appointment. He's like, I want an environment where I feel safe and you feel safe. And she's like, no, we're doing this now. And he's like, okay, cool. So knows about her, how skilled she is. And she's like, are you trying to flatter me? He's like, no, I'm just stating the facts. And for her, she talks about feeling like, she says poo, but obviously, and he's like, okay, you said you feel like poo, but why do you think that is? Because for her, she wants to change. She does. Granted, she did kill May and Phil last episode, and even at one point when she was going through Fernanda's bag, Eve saw the newspaper and even had a picture of Villanelle on the front. So, like, I guess it was like, right, she's the major suspect because Nell disappeared at the time. So I'm sure, like, she was the number one suspect in considering everything. Because the rest of the group is probably like, yeah, we knew that she was a little off, didn't expect this. But that was also the thing for Villanelle. It's like, right, I killed them even though I tried hard not to. I mean, she literally almost killed May but didn't. So, and even Martin's like, well, that is kind of progress. That's saying something that you didn't want to kill them, even though you still did. Once again, it's just kind of like the May thing. It's like, cool, you didn't kill her, you still tried though. So, and that also plays into the Eve relationship too. It's like, why, after all these years, like, why not kill Eve? Despite everything, you like having control over her, but you also like that she has control over you. And it's like, right, Eve's a rainbow. It's like a rainbow in beige boots, because Villanelle sees herself as a rainbow in a world of beige people, and she feels, and when it is that thing of she sees a kindred spirit in Eve, that is like, right, in our bones, like, we understand each other like no one else. We are kindred, as the word I've used to describe Villanelle and Eve's relationship. In a twisted way, it is like we're kindred spirits. You know, it's meant to be, like, you know, and she's like, I want Eve to tell me all the boring stuff. She would, this type of stuff she wouldn't tell anyone because, well, it's boring, but it wouldn't be to me, it'd be fascinating, you know? She wants that everyday life because it's not just a factuation or an obsession. Like, they don't use those words, but in her own way, I think Eve does love Villanelle too, but Villanelle loves Eve. She's never felt this way towards anyone. I mean, hell, we're talking about the woman who killed her own mother. To be fair, her mother wasn't the greatest person either, but still, she killed her own mother, like, you know. Granted, she let her brothers live, so I think that speaks volume. But I guess it's like, right, my mom's a terrible person, so it's fine. My brothers were nice to me. They were good. I see my mother for the devil that she was, and everyone else in that family kind of sucks, so they can die too, so. And in her mind, despite everything, Eve will never be that person that sucks. It's like, yeah, I've tried to kill her, but it's like, yeah, if you really wanted to kill her, you would have killed her. You were super happy to find out she was alive. It's just, it's always been a part of your game. Like, oh, you hurt me and apologize. I hurt you and apologize. And we go round and round and round. But this game we play, this circle this cycle we found ourselves in couldn't go on forever. Eve's trying to break it, while Villanelle's trying to break it in a different manner and trying to find a new cycle for them to be in because she wants to change. And even Martin's impressed by that because he's like, how many psychopaths have ever come to me wanting to change? None. The fact is you want to. It's like even saying, like, the fact is you're thinking like this, you're already mid-morphosis. So he tried to end the session like, oh, we'll start again. I love Villanelle being like, wait, did you mean all what you said? And he was like, what? Of course I did. She's like, were you saying that just to get rid of me? Don't make fun of me or something like that. I was like, it's hard to say because, I mean, he is in a situation where he isn't safe, but he handles himself like a professional. I love the next time. I was like, oh, please don't tell me Martin's going to die. But it's like, oh, she just has him tied to, like, the lawn chairs outside. So when Eve does find out about her, comes over and like she's starting to choke Martin so hard that his eyes started rolling, and then she's like, it's okay, and just lets him go, bangs his head on the table. I was like, that would suck if Martin's dead. Luckily he's not, but at that moment I was like, did you just kill Martin? She was like, and even Villain was like, oh my god, it was an accident. I was like, no, Martin. But it's like, okay, he seems like he's okay, and Villain was like, at worst it's a concussion. So, and Eve's asking all these questions like, right, so how was therapy? How did it go? And it's like, and even Eve interpreted it as, you did all this to get my attention because you could have gone to any therapist, but you happened to kidnap the therapist and take hostage the therapist I knew. But it's like, you did that because you wanted my attention. You even left it on my bed so I would find it. You wanted me here, so. And then Eve's like, right, I should have done this years ago. And she, like, at first I thought Villanelle, I didn't realize, because when it said incoming for whatever reason from Yusef, I thought like, oh, he's sending her a picture, and I was like, oh, you're not going to tell her about the whole Helen thing, because it's like, right, it's none of her business right now, right? But I thought that's like an incoming picture of information. I thought Villanelle was going to, oh, who's Yusef, and that was going to be a whole thing, but it's like, no, I didn't expect that. I think that's the point too. Neither did Villanelle. It's like, well, you turned me in. That's never happened before. Despite everything, it's never happened before. And it's like, that's her way of being like, right, I'm done with you. I'm shaking my hands clean of this. And what does she do immediately? Later on, it's like, oh, I get on my bed. It's like, oh, hey, you left your number for me. So I'll call Helen. And it's like, oh, no, you owe me dessert. You know, it's like, once again, it's like you're replacing. It's like, oh, I'm getting rid of you, Villanelle, because I've moved on. It's like, we'll see how long this lasts. So, sadly, Villanelle finding herself locked up again. So, what this means for her, where we go from here with Villanelle, this whole Eve and Helen thing, because now, once again, she knows that the guy she most recently tried to have killed is still alive, so there's a chance he'll talk, and now he's kind of being safeguarded by Vlad, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how all of this ends up playing out going forward into episode 4. I'm excited to see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.